My name is Audrey Coleman, and I'm the director here at the Institute. I have just a few things I want to promo before I pass the floor to our next speaker. So, Senator Bob Dole's legacy, one of the things that he really liked to do the most and was really proud of in his life of service and leadership was working with young people from Kansas, to getting Kansas interns up in his offices, to working with his staffers from Kansas and making opportunities and helping them get into the halls of leadership in government and service and politics. And that's something, a tradition that we proudly continue here at the Dole Institute. You all are the reason why we are here, because we believe in investing in all of you as the new generations of leadership in this country. Secondly, Anna Sophia mentioned the Bob Dole archives and Elizabeth Dole archives that you'll all have the opportunity to tour at the end of next week after the meeting next Tuesday afternoon. So I won't go into Bob Dole's biography, but another thing about him that's really important to understand and remember, do any of you know, have heard of Bob Dole? I'm sure you have, right? I'm kind of feeding you the line here. Well, he was a partisan and he was a Republican. And he really wanted Republicans to win because he was a member of that party. But what he did after that, after elections, was something that is really quite extraordinary these days. And he got to work with not just his Republican colleagues in the Senate, but with Democrats in the Senate. And something that was really fantastic and stimulating for him was not the zero-sum game, which is I win and you lose, but the game that we played together and the game that all of the senators played together, which is like, let's run up the score on passing legislation. So as Republican Senate leader, Bob Dole wasn't after just 51 votes for a simple minority. He wasn't after a filibuster breaking number plus one. He wanted to get all of the senators together as best as possible and pass legislation with vote counts in the 70s and the 80s. And we just don't see that today. But that was an important part of his service and tradition, and that we also celebrate here at the Dole Institute. That ability and interest and willingness and understanding that when we work together across the aisle, that the solutions and the legislation and policy solutions that we come up with are better. We are a more cohesive government. We're a more cohesive society. So as Anna Sophia said, the politics of connection, we've all seen that politics divides us. It's in our media, in our lives every day, but we do it a little bit different here at the Institute, and that's something we're really proud of. Lastly, how many of you are from Kansas originally? Okay, many Kansas. Well, if you're not from Kansas originally, you come to KU, you're a Kansan now. So here in Kansas, we have a wonderful leadership tradition. Not just Bob Dole, but you might have heard of President Eisenhower, who was always looking for a middle ground as a president. Nancy Kassebaum Baker, who was Bob Dole's colleague in the Senate. Senator Elizabeth Dole, who's not a Kansan, but married a proud Kansan, and herself has a distinguished career. And if you stick around the Dole Institute, you'll learn more about her. We've had Kansas governors and state legislators, not just in the past, but currently, who are very partisan and very successful, but also build their careers on working together with folks across the aisle. And I think some of you might know where I'm going with this, because we are so lucky here at the Dole Institute to have one of those state legislative leaders here on our staff at the Dole Institute. And she does many wonderful things for us, but I'll let her tell you about civic engagement and anything else that we do here at the Dole Institute. Please help me welcome Senator, also Senior Associate Director Barbara Ballard. Come on up, Dr. Ballard.
Thank you, Audrey. And actually, I want to thank Sophia as well. Sophia is one of those people that get involved. And you will hear me say a lot about that. In fact, I will have you say it before you leave here as well. Civic engagement. What's civic engagement all about? Civic engagement says that we care about those issues that are important, especially in our neighborhood or on this campus or in the Lawrence community, whatever community you came from. You should care about that, and you want it to be the best possible. Some people will say, my hometown is my favorite place. Or if you don't like your hometown the way it is, maybe you're one of those people who should go back and change it and make it the way you want it to be for other people as well. But what I want to do is just tell you that we will have what we call our Civic Engagement and KU Leadership Month coming up. And it will start on September the 10th. And it ends on October the 15th. October the 15th is the last day that you can register to vote in the state of Kansas if you want to vote in the November 5th election, okay? The other thing we will have is our National Voter Registration Day. That day falls on September the 17th. September the 17th is also Constitutional Day. And that was a mandate that we should be looking at our Constitution and taking pride in it as well. And then the big one is going to be National Voter Education Week. And that's the week that you will see us, as well as other weeks on campus. And that's October 7th through 11th. Part of it is that we are part of what we call the Big 12. And of course, we have a lot more schools now. It was the Big 12 with 10 schools. Now we have the Big 12 and we have 14 schools, but we're going to still stay the Big 12. Does that make sense? If it doesn't, that's how it is. So I will just say you in the process, and we are in competition for increasing the voter participation rate of 18 to 29-year-olds. We have a very high rating, and just recently, we have been chosen right up in that top deal of being able to get more students registered and participating and actually voting in our elections, and we want to uphold that. We want to keep that title. We don't compete by number. If so, we would lose to Texas because they have 45,000 students. But we're looking at where do we start percentage-wise with students voting, and at the end of the election, where do we end? At one point, we increased 23.2%. That is why we have the rating that we have. I'm asking all of you to participate. Whether you're out of state, vote in your home state. If you're in state, make sure you vote in order to do it, and especially on this campus as well. I would also like to just introduce to you the Hemingway Public Service recipient that we have. In every April, we elect a junior, and she helps me with civic engagement, with voting, with get out to vote and everything else. And Maddie Saucer, would you stand, please, so that you know that's the student that was selected for. I'll give her a little applause. Thank you very much in the process. So I will say to you, don't be bashful on this campus. There are people more than willing to help you. Come to the Dole Institute. We don't charge you anything, but we have a lot to give you. You come and participate in our programs, especially the Student Advisory Board. You learn a lot, you participate. You get to meet all the fantastic speakers that we have on this campus. A lot of people have gotten interns that way. We give you a little bit of money if you want to travel, if you're involved in what we do. But we want students to become involved. Remember, students on this campus learn two ways, and I'm a faculty member. You learn in the classroom, and you learn outside of the classroom. Part of getting involved on campus, being civically engaged, allows you to do all these outside things that you learn as well as in the classroom. So I would ask you to please get involved. You learn a lot. You can have a lot of fun. You can meet people you ordinarily would not have that opportunity to meet here at the Dole Institute. So before I close, I'm going to have you repeat something after me. I am a Jayhawk. Boy, you don't sound like one. I am a Jayhawk. I am a Jayhawk. I care. And Jayhawks get involved. Now we're going to say this again. I want you to say it like you mean it. I am a Jayhawk. I care. I'll get involved because I am a what? What do you say? All right, take pride. Thank you so much. And now I will have you talk with our discussion leaders.
Hello, everyone. It's nice seeing a lot of new faces around here today. My name is Braden Banglin, and I'm one of 3 discussion group coordinators here at the Dole Institute. What's a discussion group? At the Institute, discussion groups are semester-long program series we host with invited Dole Institute fellows around a specific topic or theme related to community advocacy, local, regional, and national politics. For example, last semester, we had Douglas County Commissioner Karen Willey be our Dole Fellow around a theme regarding sustainability, agriculture, and renewable energy in the state of Kansas, in the heartland, and beyond. This semester, we're super excited to launch 2 concurrent discussion group series. One addressing the obvious current election year, which is going to be really exciting, and one talking about the legislature and Congress in the 21st century. Discussion groups this semester are going to be held regularly on Wednesdays at 4 p.m. And it's a great way for us to be surrounded not just by other students, but also members of the Lawrence community and talk about a lot of very pressing issues regarding local, national, and state politics. For our first discussion group series this semester, we're going to have Dole Fellow Jonathan Shorman, who some of you may know is the lead political reporter at the Kansas City Star. He has formerly worked as the legislative correspondent at the Star, as well as the Wichita Eagle. Moreover, he is a KU journalism alum, and I'm sure he'll be very excited to see a lot of journalism students, a lot of students interested in engaging in politics, and it's going to be a super fun time. We really are excited for this, and we want everyone to come. I'm going to let my 2 co-coordinators talk about our second concurrent DG series this coming semester.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ella Rooms, and I'm another one of the discussion group coordinators at the Dole Institute this year. Like Braden said, we are having 2 different events, so we will have the event he just talked about with Jonathan Shorman, but our second series is called Congress in the 21st Century, and it will be hosted by former members of Congress, one Republican and one Democrat. You know, here at the Dole Institute, we do like to foster that bipartisan mission, so bringing in both sides is really important to us. But the Democrat this semester will be Sherry Bustos, and she served in the House of Representatives for the great state of Illinois from 2019 to 2023. Also, just wanted to mention that at every discussion group series event, we do have snacks and beverages provided, so that's just like a little perk for you guys to get involved.
Hello, I am Jacob McCarty, the third discussion group coordinator, and the last fellow his name is Luke Messer. He is a congressman from the state of Indiana from 2013 through 2019, and he is going to be our Republican fellow this for our conversation. As well, students who do frequent the discussion groups may be provided the chance to have dinner with the special guests afterwards. It's a really great time. Please do come out, hear these really interesting conversations, and yeah, we're super happy to see everyone here.
Perfect. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today again. And I would love to start by introducing our very, very special guests and Jayhawks. First, Erika Andrade, President and CEO of El Centro, a Latino-led and serving a nonprofit providing resources to build health, wealth, and power to Latino communities in Wyandotte and Johnson counties. And Alejandro Rangel Lopez, campaign manager at New Frontiers, where they focus on equipping fellow Southwest Kansans with the tools needed to build political, economic, and social power through grassroots community building. Please join me in giving them a very warm welcome. Thank you again for joining us today. I was wondering if you could start off by briefly sharing a little bit about your story and background and what sparked your interest in community organizing and specifically for the Latino community?
Sure. Erica Andrade. I guess a little bit about my background. I was originally born in South Texas in a border town, proud daughter of an immigrant mother. And so coming up to Kansas when I was 15, it was a big culture shock for me at that point. At that time, I didn't have to think of my Latinidad because everybody around me was just like me. And here in Kansas, that was very different. I quickly became very involved in high school, which I had not been actually before then, volunteering and just wanting to make connections with the Latino community at that time. Came to KU, joined some Latino organizations, got very engaged. And then, decided, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? And at that point, that's when I decided, my passion in life is serving my community, the Latino community, and I wanted to do that through social service. So I joined a wonderful organization in Kansas City, Kansas called El Centro, which is a Latino-led, Latino-serving organization. And so I've been there ever since, which I'm at 23 years now that I've been with the organization. Part of the work that we do around El Centro is service provision, so we provide direct services to individuals. But another big part of what we do is advocacy. And so we see advocacy as a way to help individuals, especially individuals that are newcomers to our communities, to get engaged, civically engaged with their communities that they're a part of, and how important having those connections and feeling a part of something is to grow communities and make them better overall. And also to avoid having those isolation kind of moments. And so that kind of started us in that work. I never saw to this day, I still don't see myself as a mobilizer, but I guess that is what we do. It's part of the work of having those conversations with people and telling them that their story, their voices, their thoughts matter, regardless of status, regardless of where they were born or what religion they are. They matter in their communities, and their stories and their voices matter. And empowering them to be able to share that with the people that are elected to represent us in different tables. And so that's just a really big passion of part of the work that we do.
Absolutely, thank you.
Along similar, we have not too similar, but we have similar sentiments, I guess. But yeah, my name is Alejandro Rangel Lopez, so you see they pronouns. But I guess to start, I graduated KU undergrad last year, and but when I first got started was after 2016. I was 16 at the time, and that was really a big wake-up call for me because I was watching the news, I was keeping in touch with, following the election as closely as I could as rural Southwest Kansas. But I was really just kind of dumbfounded after the election in November. I was just shocked that this result could even come about, right? I didn't think it was in the realm of possibilities, right? And it was really that moment that kind of really spurred me to act and do something in my community, right? Because I was watching the news, all these big campaign events and all that in like Philadelphia, New York, all that, but it's like, does that ever reach us, right? But yeah, it was especially that day after the election, I think, that really kind of solidified kind of like what I wanted to do with my career and all that. Because you could walk through the hallways and hear a pin drop. Dodge City, where I was born and raised, I live there currently. I decided to go back, but I was born and raised there, and we're a majority minority community, majority Hispanic. So it really hit us, and you could tell the impact right then and there. So that was back in 2016. That led to me getting involved with the only progressive group that I really knew out there, which is your county Democratic Party. So I got involved there, and through that met some folks who connected me with some resources at the ACLU of Kansas. And at the time, they were working on a voting rights campaign. So that's really how I first got started, and that has snowballed into this. I now work full-time as a campaign manager for New Frontiers, and I cover Dodge City and Garden City. We host monthly meetings and work towards getting young folks involved under 35 out there, since we really don't have much in the way of
Absolutely.
advocacy there. But yeah.
And speaking of, Kansas is a very diverse state regarding population density. There's big differences between Dodge City and Kansas City, Kansas. And Alejandro, you focus more so at New Frontiers in Southwest Kansas. And I was wondering if you could speak about how voting and civic engagement initiatives in rural parts of the state differ from more urban areas like Wyandotte County, and if we could create some contrasts.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I can. Oh, where do I start? Well, to begin, I mean, Dodge City is a rural community. Depends. There's some rivalry between Garden City and Dodge as to who has the biggest population, but they're the biggest cities out there, 30,000 people. You know, but more cows than people, but you know, we vibe. So really, we're starting from zero, right? We have no infrastructure from either political parties that have done the deep investing in these rural areas and in these Latino communities to get folks out to vote reliably and consistently. So there's that. We don't really have a base of like, okay, folks who know how to knock doors, folks who know what phone banking is, folks who know how to, you know, talk to folks even just about what's happening in the community, right? We have a real lack of like news sources. So, you know, you know more about, I like to say, you know more of what's happening in Brazil than you know, a block away from you, which is, you know, the sad state of journalism in our country, unfortunately. But, you know, that's one part, right? But, you know, and that influences kind of how you do the rest of your work. Because, I mean, you're talking to people, young people who have never been involved ever, and you're throwing phone bank, throwing like canvassing, all these words at them, and like, oh, did you know you have, you know, all these structures that are at the national level, they also exist on the smaller level here? Oh my goodness. And on top of that, it's not only a rural population, it's a rural immigrant population. So that compounds a lot of some of the social issues and some of the, I guess, lack of resources that you see out there. No, yeah, I could go on and on about this, but there's that part there. So lack of media sources, lack of training, and lack of experience, basically. So.
Do you think these challenges also present themselves in Wyandotte and Johnson counties? Do we face similar challenges, or?
Yes and no. Obviously, there is, as far as media and communication, things like that, there's a lot more of that. But that doesn't change the fact that Wyandotte has like a really poor turnout rate for voting. So even though it's known as a Democratic county, it's very Democratic, it has been for many years, when you look at actually the turnout, it's horrible.
Right.
So we probably have the same amount of voters in our communities, to be honest, even with the difference in population. So that's very, you know, disheartening sometimes when you're trying to do the work. So the work is a little different because we do have voters on the voter rolls. We have a large number of individuals that are registered, they're just not voting. So it's about empowering and engaging with individuals and talking about the importance of actually getting out there and voting, and not just voting at the general elections for president, but also in between at the local elections and things like that, and how important that is. So that's kind of the work that we do, which is coming to people, talking about the subjects that we think are going to engage them. So for example, if we have parents that have young kids in school and they have a lot of opinions about their school district, we tell them, well, you know, we vote for school board members. You should, if you're not happy, then that's where you can make that difference. And so trying to engage them in that kind of local part, plus, you know, our commissioners and being a part of commission meetings. And Wyandotte County is a very diverse community, and yet the people that represent us are not diverse, which I think is the sentiment across the whole state, if not the country. So really the individuals that are being elected are not being elected to look like the people that they're representing. And so that's a big issue. And so also encouraging young folks to want to run for office, whether it's commission or school board, things like that, and motivating them into thinking that they can make a difference, even though it seems scary. It's really not that complicated if you have a good team around you. So it's more of that piece of it. It's the engaging with potential voters that might already even be registered, they're just not voting. Johnson County is a completely different ballgame. First, it's huge, and it's spread out over multiple areas. And there's it's tending to go a little bit more progressive, a little bit more, you know, liberal, but it still has a lot of conservative sections in it. And so it's really hard to try to mobilize individuals when a county is that spread out, and there's so many different pockets.
Right.
So, yeah. That makes it a little-
Is there something about your work that excites you the most? Is it the advocacy side, or more so civic engagement, or being able to do these sort of events, or what's your favorite part, I suppose?
My favorite part is just talking to individuals, meeting the people in our community, listening to their stories, hearing their struggles, because a lot of times us, individuals that work in organizations, we think we have the answers. Like, we know the things that impact us and that we care about and that fire us up, but that might not be the same thing that is firing up our community. And so it's kind of like a reality check every time you go in and have conversations with people, because you see where their mindset is at. You know, we're worried about those big things that we're seeing in the news. They're worried about, you know, why are eggs so expensive now, and why do we pay so many taxes in food? Like, those are the things that are really concerning them, those local things. And so that's the part that I really like, because it kind of keeps me grounded to why the importance of the work, and not just seeing the big picture, but also the little picture.
Yeah. Absolutely, thank you.
I mean, if you're doing this kind of work and you don't like the people, well, you probably shouldn't be in that work. Just saying, but yeah, I love working with folks, right? Especially in the area that I work in Southwest Kansas. It's I'm working with a population very similar to KCK, right? We're just don't feel empowered, don't get involved, don't feel like they can get involved, and don't even know how to go about that, right? And you know, you compound that with they're working at the beef packing plants. They're working long hours from 5 a.m. to 2, 3 p.m. Heavy work, repetitive work. They got to get home, make dinner, and pick up their kids from school. They've got to, take care of chores around the house, so on and so forth. So of course, people can't, focus on or pay attention to everything that's going on and that we're being bombarded with in the news. That's impossible even for me, right? But like, I like going in there, talking to folks who have, they're like, oh, why does it matter that I get involved? Like, and then seeing that change of like, oh, actually, did you know, hey, we're voting on a sales tax, right, locally here to fix the roads. You complain about, this pothole, in your neighborhood and all this stuff. This piece of like this tax is going to directly impact that thing that you care about directly. Seeing, right, as they get involved, not even, I don't really push people to do things they don't want to do. I like to let folks discover kind of, all right, what's your role in this movement, right? What do you like doing? Or do you like making videos and all that stuff? Do you prefer making TikToks? We got a place for you, right? So like really working with folks to see them kind of progress along this like ladder of engagement, as we call it, but as they get more and more involved and feel more and more empowered, right, and just take on more responsibilities. And then eventually they can do this on their own, and I don't even have to be there. That's what I love to see. It makes me super, super happy to see folks take action for themselves on things they care about.
Right, absolutely. And it seems like these conversations are really the link between government and people, and are incredibly crucial. And it seems like there's a lot of the root cause is mistrust in government, unfortunately, since the Latino community has been disinvested in and just sort of ignored for as long as we can remember. So I was wondering, how do you identify the needs within the Latino community and try to rebuild this trust? Are there any strategies that you all have found that are successful, or I guess how do we ensure Latinos feel more empowered to vote?
Well, it's a
big question. Loaded
We're
question.
still figuring out. We're still figuring that out. Right?
Yeah, there's a lot of different methods. I think it's important to engage with community and not do for them, but have them actually lead you on the road to whatever they're trying to accomplish. So at El Centro, we work with a group of women that we empower and train. We call them promotoras, which promoter. And they do a lot of different work through the community. They do healthy eating work, and they talk about enrolling in public benefits and just have a lot of information. But they're just starting to do a lot of advocacy work themselves, because these are natural leaders from communities that just want to be engaged. They just want to do a little bit more. And so we basically empower them with information, education, and maybe a little bit of training, but they really do go out and talk to their own community. And that's what people want, right? They want somebody to talk to them that's just like them, that's from their neighborhood. And not somebody that's coming out, an outsider that's coming out and just kind of imposing their will. And I think that that's probably one of the best ways to engage with people, is empowering the people that are already there in the community.
Yeah. One thing that doesn't work is bringing in someone from outside the community who's, never lived there, and trying to tell folks who actually live there and, know what's up, how to do things. So, biggest nonprofit L right there is just to bring someone in and think that they're going to parachute in and fix all that. No, don't do that. But yeah, just the folks already have the answers. You just got to talk to them. That's the root of it all, is just have conversations with folks. They know what, they see the issues in their lives. They see the issues in the community. You just have to, give them oftentimes just the language to describe it. But like I said, they'll have conversations with folks and with their family members and friends and all that. They've got their own networks, and come back, it's like, oh, now I know more, and I'm a better organizer because of it, right? Because I have an idea of what works, right? But it's all informed, and it all comes from the people. Because if the people aren't with you, then why are you doing that work, right?
Absolutely. And sort of delving into the logistics of organizing and civic engagement at New Frontiers and El Centro, is collaborating with more so community groups or creating groups like Las Promotoras, is that more effective than collaborating with other nonprofits or with the government? Or I was curious about the logistics of your work.
Ooh, well, logistics. In relation to, well, there's a lot of data, a lot of paperwork that, I mean, not necessarily paperwork, but a lot of data and planning that you got to do to be successful. Because like, for example, we're doing our Give Me 500 campaign right now. Give me five, yeah. But we're doing Give Me 500 campaign, trying to mobilize 500 people in Dodge City, so getting 500 folks to pledge to vote. That we started planning that in February, and we're just now, getting that rolling in September. So it's a lot of planning. And then we also host monthly meetings, so community action team meetings, CATS, in Garden City, Dodge, and Liberal. So I host the ones in Dodge and Garden. So that's each month. End of the month, got to coordinate 2 meetings, hour-long meetings, and reach out to all those folks and make sure the volunteers, know that the meeting's coming and that they're going to attend. Invite new folks. Keep people who've already signed up as supporters active and make sure that they know what's going on. For the election right now, volunteers and people who want to figure out, folks who want to knock doors and figure out what their role is in this election, right? What are their strengths and all that. But I'm a campaign manager. We're under Loud Light, which is the statewide nonprofit. So I focus on Southwest Kansas, and they've got someone taking care of all the money part of it. I don't deal with that. I think you might have some more insight on that.
We do a lot of partnering and collaboration with a lot of different organizations. So some of our partners are Loud Light, ACLU, and many, many others throughout the state. And so a lot of events are coordinated. There have some trainings and events that are coordinated. But because our specialty at El Centro is working with the Latino community, but just not just the Latino community, the Spanish-speaking Latino community, we're very hyper-focused on that. So a lot of the work, honestly, we can't do in partnership because they don't have the personnel or the equipment to be able to do that work. But that's why we're there. So we do a lot of the work that we do, social media, radio, Spanish radio, and then we like to do PSAs and ads. So we do a lot of that kind of engagement via that. And then we also are doing the voter-to-voter groups. So we have our promotoras that have created their own groups, and they actually made it a competition to see who could get the biggest group of individuals that then they become influencers of those groups of making sure that they're getting registered on time. They have a plan. Are you going to vote early? Are you going to vote by mail? Are you going to go in person? And they kind of keep in touch with them the whole time, because it's not just about registering them and getting them in your group. It's going to be also the propensity of voters. Like at the end, you'll be able to see how many of those people that you engaged from your team that actually followed through and voted. And so that'll be really exciting to see. And this is the first year we've done that. And we have one individual that has like over 100 people in her group. She is excited. She's pumped. She's going to win. She's like, I'm going to win this competition. And so we try to do it in that way too. So really for us, the grassroots it's the people that are really doing a lot of that work and coordinating together, both here and then also some in Western Kansas. We have some promotoras out there in Garden City as well.
Collab in the works.
Absolutely. Wonderful. Thank you. So sort of delving into the election, so there'll be approximately 36 million Latinos that will be eligible to vote in the upcoming election, which is a massive voting bloc, which we oftentimes sort of group together, which we shouldn't, since we're so diverse and I guess unique compared to other voting groups. Are there any key challenges that you predict the candidates will face to try to reach out to our community?
So many. This is where it gets a little complicated, because Latinos are so diverse.
We're not a monolith.
We are so not a monolith. And so whereas other populations might be like they're hardcore something or hardcore something else,
Right.
Latinos, it really depends on background and experience that kind of determines, and also place. You know, some Latinos from California are going to be very different than Latinos in the Midwest. And so it's really hard to determine that. I think the thing that's always been a deficit for candidates, not the community, is that they have ignored the Latino vote or not invested enough time and resources and in speaking to them to be able to engage them in a way that it's not just using them for the election to get votes, and also thinking that the only thing that they care about is immigration. Because that's not the case. They're just like every other American. They care about economy and housing and all the other things that we care about. So I think that those are some of the biggest mistakes that they make, is making those assumptions.
Absolutely.
Yeah, ditto. I think I want, expanding on your point of like, yeah, Latinos are not a monolith. Even just Latinos from Southwest Kansas are pretty different from the ones in Kansas City. Like a rural Latino is going to have I think, like a Texas Latino, I have a Texas Mexican, I would say, you know. So, there's a mix of folks, right? Because Southwest Kansas also used to be part of Mexico, used to be part of Texas. So we have folks who've been there for hundreds of years, and then some folks who've been there just recently, more recent history, still in the past, but they came there for the railroads. They worked for the railroads, and now we have another wave of Latinos from Mexico that arrived in the 80s, 70s, 80s, 90s because of the plants, the beef packing plants. So we've got a lot of folks, right? And even Mexicans are different from Cubans, very, very different from Cubans. But there's the biggest mistake, is treating us as a monolith, and also the way that candidates interact with the Latino community is always last minute. And it's also kind of like interacting with a caricature, I guess. It's always like, they've always got a mariachi, and they've always got like all that stuff, which is great, it's fun. But that's not all we are.
Yeah,
and also,
right.
again, there's a lot of folks who are a few generations removed from the immigration issue, and a lot of folks care more about the economy because, right, why did we migrate here? To make money. So really focusing on the economy is one of the biggest, I guess, things that I think candidates could do different when interacting with Latinos. But there's a lot there.
No, absolutely. No, thank you. Those are incredible answers. I was also wondering, you spoke about different barriers like misinformation. Are there other barriers like language or news sources or just miscommunications or that you believe are responsible for lower voter turnout within the Latino community? And what strategies do you think that we can implement to overcome this challenge?
I think we recently have seen a wave, not just in Kansas, but in other states, where there is a very direct and specific movement to limit voter rights. Where voting should be the thing that we kind of support, and everybody should want people to vote, regardless of what their party is. But we've kind of seen a wave of the opposite, of almost making it harder, limiting days. Everything's like making it harder for people to vote. So obviously that takes an effect, especially when people are working. Not everybody has the luxury of getting paid to go and vote, and so the more limits that you put to voting, the harder it is. Language access is a thing. Just because somebody prefers to speak in Spanish or their primary language is in Spanish does not mean that they can't vote or that they're not U.S. citizens. Those are just assumptions that people make. And that it should be available in the language that people choose to be more comfortable in, because when you're, especially as complicated as I'm sure you guys have seen, sometimes they put these questions on there and it's a yes or a no, but the yes sounds like you're saying no and the no sounds like you're saying yes. So imagine if that's not your primary language and you're really trying to decipher what is it exactly that I'm trying to say here. And so not wanting to foul in, there's regulations for that, where there should be providing the information in the language of when a certain community lives there at a certain level and they're not following those rules in Kansas, like in Wyandotte. And so, yeah, that's definitely an issue. And if the harder you make it, if you're limiting the ballot times, if I can't even drop it off, if nobody can drop it off for me, if it gets there a little too late, then everything seems like to not count. Like they just constantly want to not count your vote. It does discourage a lot of people to like, why am I trying so hard then, So.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, language access. I think we're lucky in Ford and Finney County, as well as Seward, I believe, out in Southwest Kansas, because we're covered under the Voting Rights Act, and we're required to have Spanish ballots as well. So our ballots are bilingual, as well as our little I voted stickers. But let's flashback, or I guess rewind to 2018. I was one of the barriers is ballot access, right? In Dodge City currently we have 2 polling places for 14,000 voters, which is an improvement from 2018. The midterms back then, I was involved. I was a plaintiff in a lawsuit against the county clerk in Ford County because she moved the polling site from the Civic Center, which is relatively centrally located in Dodge, to south of town at the Expo Center outside of city limits. No sidewalks, nothing, all that. In September. I found this out in September while we were registering folks to vote at the high school. And that turned into a lawsuit, and we successfully, asked and pushed the county clerk to open up another polling site. So now we have 2, where for the previous 2 decades we had 1, so a little win there, but still, but still not enough polling sites, right? I mentioned earlier that folks got other stuff to do. They got work, they got kids, they got dinner to make, they got all these other things. And then you want them to, make it super hard so they can't, they got to drive 15, 20 minutes to get to the polling place, or, it's not a neighborhood location, or they don't have Spanish access. All these things are additional barriers that make it less likely that Latinos are going to vote, right? You gotta make it as accessible as it can be, right? As a government, right? As a local body, I think that's a responsibility, is to make, if you want an electorate to turn out, you gotta have the laws to match it. Like same-day voter registration would do a great service, I think, to the folks who are unregistered, right? Because you've got the deadline on the 15th. And then you've got, and then you can't, if you forgot the deadline, then you can't vote that year. Boo-hoo, right? But there's so many things that make it less likely for folks to vote.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And speaking of folks that need to vote more, young people are a key electorate. You students, are a key electorate in this upcoming election, but also important members of the Latino community, of course. Have you found any different strategies that are effective in engaging young people? Are they different? Whether it's through social media, do you think have more of an effect on young people? Or I guess what strategies have you found in your work that are most effective in organizing and mobilizing young folks?
It's difficult. I think the motivations are different for younger folks. They need to feel passionate about something. And so because they're still at a different phase in life, so maybe they're not thinking about those things like, oh, my kids, and I want this, they want to be inspired. And so that's one way that you can engage young folks is they have to feel inspired for something that they're voting for. It's not enough to just vote against something. And that's good. That's a good thing. But it just means that there also has to be a system in place that allows for that allows for those kind of engagements, and then also for people to run for office that are exciting the young folks to vote. So it's just a little different in that sense. Yeah, it's a little different in that sense because you have to keep their attention a lot longer, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Like I said, still trying to figure that out. But some things that have worked in Southwest Kansas is in the work in Garden City and Dodge is, I don't know, we're a very online generation, yeah, but I don't know about y'all, but I'm tired of it. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of just doom scrolling and my only human interaction being through a phone screen. So that's kind of what influenced kind of, I guess, having monthly meetings and meeting with folks regularly, connecting folks, bringing these kind of meetings off of computers, off of Zoom into real life. Because, I don't know, I like being around people. I like talking to folks and feeling like I'm in community, right? There's a difference between an online interaction and something you do in person, right? And I think that leads to just more authentic interactions, and also you can be a little bit more vulnerable, I guess. And what I've seen in this, as I've done this work, I've been doing this full time for 2-3 years now, is these groups have become friends. Like these folks who hadn't known each other and didn't know where to meet folks to make friends and all that, they become friends and they hang out outside of like our monthly like CAT meetings. And I mean, if I achieve nothing else, I could die happy, right? No, yeah, it's just seeing these connections, and that's having a connection to the work and having like, I guess, what is it? Skin in the game, I guess, because you're not just voting for yourself, you're voting for your friends, you're voting for your family, you're voting for your kids' future, right? And you're building a community for your kids, right? I hope I get to see some of the stuff that I'm working on, become reality, but I don't really expect that. I expect my kids to reap the benefits. I won't, in Southwest Kansas specifically, right? We have a water issue, we're going to run out of water in a few decades if we don't do something about it. It's like, all right, if we don't have water, what future do our kids have? Yeah. So just one example, right? Bringing the issues close to home and having personal stakes in it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess my last sort of major question is, so we're talking about voter turnout and I guess the effects of low voter turnout. How does the underrepresentation of specifically Latino voter turnout impact policy decisions that affect Latino communities? I mean, you speak about water, you speak about healthcare, and I guess what are potential long-term consequences of these actions?
I think we're experiencing that now. The fact that we in Kansas have low voter turnout, and so it's hard to move the needle on getting different blood into politics, which I think is very much needed. So all of these policies that are widely popular, that we know are widely popular with everybody, not just certain groups in Kansas, aren't getting passed because we're not doing enough to change what the makeup of that body looks like throughout the whole thing. I think that that's very evident. I think, you can look at different things. You could see, and there's a perfect example for you could see when people do get involved because they're passionate in something, the difference it make when we look at the, not the general election, I'm sorry, the primary last year, was it last year?
Right.
We all know what we're talking about. When women's rights were being targeted with the abortion issue in Kansas. People were fired up, so they went. It wasn't even a general election. I don't think nobody anticipated that. They will be studying that result for decades politically, because you saw what could happen. What happened, though, is that then those same people that were fired up and went and voted in that primary didn't vote in the general. So then it let people get jobs that basically threatened it all over again. So it's like doing all of this work, making it happen. You think you did it because you protected the actual right, but then you kind of lost sight of the end game, didn't vote on the general, and then some other individuals still got in line that are still going to threaten it. So that kind of thing. And so that's the importance of kind of keeping that engagement up, not just at that core issue, but looking, okay, well, who are the people that are going to keep making this come up? That's what should be the long game. That replacing those individuals should be the game, not just protecting the right.
Yeah. It's it's a challenge because what those results say is that when young people in Kansas have a chance to vote on the issues directly, we turn out to vote. And I mean, on abortion especially, right? We showed up to make sure that it stays a right in our Constitution because we saw what was happening in the Supreme Court. But that wasn't an easy win, right? The language on the ballot was confusing. We were talking about the yes is as worded as a no and the no worded as a yes. That was, Exhibit A there. I think another impact for Latinos, I guess, even locally, is just you don't have to look nationally to see how it impacts us, or even statewide. You can just look at your own communities, and in Southwest Kansas. Dodge City, we have 5 commissioners. All of them are older white men, when upwards of 60% of the population is Latino, right? Not one of them is Latino, right? So we can see how that impacts how resources are spent in our local communities. What roads are being fixed? What neighborhoods get new parks and new equipment? Where's all the neglected part of town, right? Do those commissioners live there? No, they live up north by the golf course. Right, you don't have to go too far out to see kind of how these things impact our local communities, and the Latino community in particular. But even on the abortion issue, I was shocked because I don't know. The issue, it was still no in Ford County by like 1 percentage point. I didn't expect it to be that close ever at all. I was like, Latinos, they don't mess with abortion. I guess I stand corrected, but. There's a lot of ways that Latinos influence policy, and we're missing out on opportunities to do that every time we don't turn out to vote.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you so much for sharing all those incredible answers with us today. I definitely learned a lot. Hope you all did too. And before we turn it over to some audience questions, I was wondering if there are any last words or advice you would give to yourselves as undergrads that you'd love to share with us today.
As an undergrad. I would say that never too young to get involved, and consider running for something. I would have a lot like school board, something local, something that you think matters. I think that's really important. I think we need a lot of new younger blood in politics, because it's more in tune with what is actually important.
Yeah, absolutely.
My advice would be to get involved locally, right? It can be, go to DC if you can, right? Do what you want, follow your dreams. But I think getting involved locally, there's a lot of opportunities there that are really missed out because no one gets involved, especially young people, in like city and county stuff. So really look there and get involved in an organization, right? You just go to a meeting. If you're like, I don't know about this group, just go to one meeting and you'll find out, right? I think it was a picnic on the patio in 2019 when I was a freshman, that I met two good friends that I still keep in touch with, right? And that was, how many years? Let me do math. 5 years ago. So you've got a lot of resources, a lot of opportunities to meet people. Don't squander them. It can be scary, very, very scary. I don't think I left my dorm until like October. So if you're in that boat, that's okay. But yeah, just step out of your comfort zone. That's why you're here, and that's how you'll find out you'll figure out what you want to do with your life and what you vibe with, because it's a very, very, I remember a lot from my college days. Let's just say that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And those of you who are here at the Institute for the first time, like, you've taken that first step, so congratulations and
Yes.
welcome, and I hope you come back. Yes. I would love to open up the floor to some audience questions. We have the lovely Braden and Ella, who will be walking around with microphones. If you would keep to like one brief question that we could answer, that would be absolutely wonderful. So, yeah, I think there's a question there in the back.
Hi, I'm Abby, and just a lot of people like in our generation kind of say like, oh, I don't know if I'll vote. And originally with the two like candidates for this election, they were like, I don't really like either of the candidates, so I don't think I'll vote. And then now it's like, now there's a new Democratic candidate, obviously, and they say, I don't think I know enough about her to vote anyway. So like, what news sources would you recommend to people like that are either in the middle, or like two news sources that one leans conservative and one leans more progressive, that you would recommend just so that people could get educated?
It's a really tough question because media in general is so partisan now. It's really hard to find any nonpartisan media, to be honest. And it takes work, and this is why it's important that I would say try to look locally at an organization that does nonpartisan work, that writes up like fact sheets. Those are really important. But what I like to do, or what I tell people and I do this with my family, it's great to look at their platforms and see what they're about, because that's what they're putting out publicly, right? What they're saying they support, what aligns with your values. That's the first question you ask. And that's simple because they all have websites and they have their platform right there in black and white. Nobody's telling you didn't see it in a mean ad. This is what they've written. That alone will tell you whether that aligns with your values or not. Second, what's really the most important to me is I do my homework and I like to see their record. I like to see for the things that they have already voted for or not voted for, and how do my values align with those things. That's what's important, because people don't change. People are what they're gonna do what they're gonna do. And so when you see their record of the things that they've worked on, invested time in, try to pass, or co-sponsored for passage, those are the things that are gonna matter, because then I can ask myself, do those things align with my values or do they not align with my values?
Yeah, exactly. Hit the nail on the head. For news sources, yeah, it's hard to find. You'll find a lean, right? In everything. Everything has a lean because language is charged, and language has meaning, right? Regardless of how nonpartisan we're trying to be. Let me take off my nonpartisan hat right now. I mean, my nonprofit hat right now, and this is me speaking as like me, Alejandro. I can say I stood in that same, like the first group of people where I was like, oh, we've got these two old dudes. I really, even as an organizer, I was like, I'm not excited to vote for them. I'm not excited to ask people to get out to vote for them, because I'm not even excited. How am I going to get other people excited? And I do this for a job. I get paid to do it. Yeah, it's, I definitely noticed a switch afterward. When they switched to Kamala Harris. And what I would say is, you don't know much about Kamala Harris, but you do have a whole presidency's worth of stuff from Donald Trump you can look at. Again, look at your values. Does that align with your values? That's my advice there. But news sources, I like the Associated Press, anything directly from the AP. Reuters. Locally, I like the Kansas Reflector for local stuff. They're great. Yeah. And then for politics, especially during legislative session here in Kansas, the Sunflower State Journal. Yes. They do great coverage. They do great coverage. But those are some two local sources there. But yeah, and those other two as nonpartisan, I guess, leaning as I can get. Yeah.
Yeah, they're wonderful. Perfect. Do you have any other audience questions? Yes, they're in the back.
Hello. I've read over the summer about some laws in Kansas which try to restrict voter registration drives, and then they were overturned, and some groups said that now will continue them. And just it seems in general, as you've mentioned before, all over the country, there are attempts to restrict voting and voter registration. How does it impact your work? And what would you say are the most meaningful and impactful ways to ease it? Like, is it making election day a holiday or automatic voter registration? Or like, which of these proposals do you believe are the most effective to help with voting engagement?
Great question. Yes, it did restrict our job a lot because we were actually doing a lot of voter IVE work, integrated voter engagement work, when they passed a law where we went from being able to help individuals with helping them fill out the registration form, because sometimes it's confusing. You don't want to mess up, right? You want to get it right, to where we couldn't do that. You couldn't help individuals because you could, they made it seem really scary. Like you could go to jail for helping somebody fill out their the registration form. So now it's been overturned, so it makes our life as organizers. And when you're trying to do it in mass and you're out there at a outdoor event and you got all these people that are getting like, yeah, they're excited at that moment. You get them at that moment when they want to register to vote. It should be easy for you to gather all of those and just go drop them off. It's their information. You still have to check it. It's not like it's not like they don't have enough things in place to check this stuff out. Yeah. They should, being able to do that again is going to be super helpful, especially when you're trying to register in mass or trying to engage people in mass to help them make it easy as possible for them to register to vote. So yes, that part of it. Second part of the question was about.
It was about any specific
I think National Holiday for Voting is a wonderful idea. I think it should be as easy as possible. Honestly, this is what I don't understand. If we live in a country where they trust the systems enough for you to pay your taxes online, why can I not vote online? It doesn't make any sense. Something can be created to make that to make it as safe as possible. As much as things are questioned now, why do they make it that difficult? If you're trusting me to give you money that I owe the government online, why can't I do my vote online? Just ask yourself that question. So that's me. That's me, but I'm radical when it comes to those things. So I'm like, I go there.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I mean, first to address the first part of your question, Loud Light, our parent organization, was part of that lawsuit against that piece of legislation. That I believe the impact was if you were mistaken for an elected official, there was you would be, and someone reported you could go to jail for it. So that put us as our work was voter registration stuff. We have fellows on campus. You got 2 fellows here at KU also. Hit them up. The fellows, their entire job was to just register folks to vote on campus, and we couldn't do that, right? The only thing we could do was like, oh, well, you can register here at ksvotes.org, but I can't help you with that, right? You go fill it out on your own, which did make our work hard, and that was the main thing that we did. I think that lawsuit started in 2021, so since 2021 we weren't doing any voter registration at all, because we were that scared of this piece of legislation. So luckily that's been, that part has been, taken care of by the courts. But yeah, and then as far as making it easier to vote, all the above, all the suggestions that you mentioned, I think sound great. I think in Estonia they vote online. I don't know, but
there's a few places.
There's a few places, yeah. Same-day voter. I'm a big advocate for same-day voter registration. Right, national holiday. They do that in Australia, and they do hot dogs, little cookouts at their polling places. I think that's awesome. Why don't we do that? Yeah. That sounds hella American. Oops, sorry. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of options here to make it easier, not just harder.
No, absolutely. And I think we had another question over there in the back, in the blue table.
Hi, I'm Charlie, and my question is, both former Governor Sebelius and current Governor Kelly have overperformed in the state relative to its lane, but statewide federal candidates like former Senator Barbara Bollier haven't. And I was wondering what the delta is between the successful Democratic statewide campaigns and the less successful federal campaigns.
I have thoughts, but I don't know how. This is not based on research, okay? Yeah. This is Erica's opinion. I think it's their ability to talk to individuals about the things that matter to them in Kansas. that belong in that are very Kansas, those kind of value-based issues that individuals respond to and like, which is one of those strange things about Kansas, right? That our legislative body is very Republican. It has been, it is what it is. And yet we tend to be very comfortable with electing Democratic governors. And I think it comes down to that part of talking about those down-home politics that people care about for that individual that's representing them at the state level that we find comforting, I think, as Kansans. That's all I can think about,
Yeah, I think definitely that, right? And I think we run into different issues, right? Kansas at the state level can elect Democrats to statewide office. They have no problem doing that, right? But when we reach the federal level, I think that's when we get into muddier issues where Kansas's kind of more conservative side comes out, right? Where this senator would have to deal with immigration, would have to deal with taxes, all this stuff, and the reason why former Governor Sebelius and current Governor Laura Kelly are successful is because they do a great job of kind of like towing that middle line there, so that they can make as many folks happy as possible, right? And one thing that I want to note for Kathleen Sebelius when she ran for governor is she had a broad coalition of folks. She got a lot of rural counties because of her connections. I think her family connections to the ag industry. So I could be wrong. I was. but that was a big part. She even won my county. That's hard to do, right? And Laura Kelly, right, built a coalition focused on Johnson County, Kansas City, Wyandotte area, Topeka, Lawrence, and Wichita, right, and turning out the suburbs there. I think for a federal candidate, it'll have to be someone with deep Kansas roots and connections, not just Eastern Kansas, the whole state, and someone who can kind of walk that middle line, but also provide a positive vision for our state and our future, right?
I couldn't agree more. Are there any other audience questions before we wrap up? Well, wonderful. Thank you so much. That concludes our program for today. Thank you so much, Erica and Alejandro, for joining us today. It's been really, really a pleasure to meet you and have this conversation today. As for the last reminders, hope to see you all at our first Student Advisory Board meeting next Tuesday at 5:30 right here, and learn about different volunteer opportunities and more about the Dole Institute. And if you could join us outside for some, we still have Dole Whip, sort of ice cream. But yes, thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much, Alejandro and Erica. Alejandro.